Hello and welcome to Humber Highlights, a special edition of Humber News. I'm Darren O'Malley.
And I'm Corey Weir. We've gathered some of the best pieces in news, sports, and entertainment from second-year broadcast students this semester. Darren has our top story.
It's been a time of turmoil for the education system. Ontario's Liberal government is still trying to repair the damage to its relationship with teachers after imposing contracts during the labor dispute. The unhappy teachers took to the streets earlier this year, and we followed along. They came in droves. They came with signs, effigies, whistles and bells, and lots to say about the Ontario government. Thousands of protesters gathered at the corner of Carleton and Church Streets outside the historic Maple Leaf Gardens, attempting to make their voices heard. According to the Sea of Signs, the crowd's biggest issue was with the controversial Bill 115. The bill limited the teachers' right to strike and was supported by the government and the opposition. Burlington High School teacher Robert Hilkowich hopes for negotiations and more communication between the government and teachers' unions.
I think if they come down to a compromise, I think everybody would be happy with that. Obviously just want to get back to doing the normal stuff that we're doing.
Bill 115 may have been the biggest issue at the protest, but it didn't stop other interest groups from raising their banners and signs up high, hoping to get their messages across as well. Weeks after the protest, Kathleen Wynne was elected as Ontario's new premier. Wynne is a former education minister and continued to work with teachers' unions to strike a deal that eventually brought extracurriculars back to schools.
Some students and educators are banding together against austerity in the province. A meeting organized by the University of Toronto's Faculty Association gave those interested a better understanding. Victoria K. Rose was there.
The auditorium of the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education was host to a meeting for faculty and student members concerned with the current status of education in Ontario.
From coast to coast, there hasn't been a day in this last year when there have not been significant sections of the working population, no matter which sector you talk about, or students or whatever, who haven't been fighting to put their issues on the table. There's not been a day.
Those on the panel ranged from educators to union leaders and members of student advocacy groups. The struggles being faced in Ontario's post-secondary education system were the focus of the evening. Ryerson faculty member John Shields says the provincial government's current plan of action just isn't working.
Some 4 years or so of austerity-driven government budgeting and policy making, the evidence indicates that it has been a universal failure in terms of improving economic growth, which is supposed to be its ultimate aim.
Chairperson of the Canadian Federation of Students Ontario, Sarah Jane King, broke down the financial woes of the average Ontario student. Ontario has the highest tuition costs in the country. These fees have increased upwards of 71% in the past 6 years. This leaves many students in staggering debt, with an estimated $2.6 billion being owed to the province. Coupled with the worst job market for youth since the 1930s, students are facing a bleak future. But Vice President of U of T's External Affairs, Luc Tremblay, says they will continue to work together and devise ways to better the province's education system.
Where we plan on going from here is definitely to use some of the information that some of our panelists have shared and also some of the members of the public that have shared with us to better strategize in presenting how we could find ways to improve the quality of higher education within this context of government austerity.
Those interested in the issues are encouraged to get involved in their school communities. For more information, you can visit the Facebook page of Toronto University students, staff, and faculty united against austerity. Victoria Quiroz, Humber News.
Many students struggle to pay for their tuition, but they're finding creative ways to get the money they need. It may not be conventional, but students have found an interesting alternative for earning money on a website called Sugar Daddies. We took a closer look at how it works. SugarDaddies.com is a site that matches wealthy men and women with students in financial need. Toronto students are now using this site in higher numbers, with Ryerson students topping the list. Drinks, dinners, and vacations are promised by the well-off men or women. A section for students looking to get their tuition paid for is also offered. Some students are disgusted by this notion, while others are understanding of their peers' financial problems.
I don't think that it's something that you should do, but if you feel like push comes to shove and you have no other way to, I guess, pay your tuition and all that kind of stuff, then do it.
While the students are looking for help with school costs, many of the sugar daddies or mamas are just looking for companionship.
Money troubles can be an issue for many students. It's hard to stay afloat when you don't know where your money is going or where to invest it. New research shows that people aren't keeping track of their spending nationwide. Rachel Landry has more on this report.
A survey by Ipsos Reid says the majority of Canadians are underestimating their expenses. More than 2,000 Canadians were surveyed to find out what they think is their #1 expense. 2/3 of Canadians think their annual grocery cost is more expensive than their car ownership. Automation and robotics student Twahir is among one of those Canadians.
I work, but then all the money I save is being wasted on food, so it's slowly decreasing and I don't know what I'm going to do when it runs out.
The cost of owning and operating a vehicle is the second largest expense for Canadians. However, the majority of people underestimated how expensive it really is. 60% of Canadians missed the mark by $4,000 or more. Humber business professor Steve Bang says there is a reason why Canadians often underestimate the cost of owning a vehicle.
And they don't consider all the other things like maintenance, and actually the depreciation on the vehicle is a big thing. If you look at the average vehicle, let's say it costs $30,000, and let's say it'll last 300,000 kilometers, that's 10 cents a kilometer.
The British Columbia Automobile Association has introduced a free online tool called Driving Costs. The website allows drivers to calculate the cost of owning a vehicle quickly and easily. The BC-based website is beneficial to all Canadians because it gives drivers the option to calculate car costs specific to their province. TTC vehicle repair worker Julian May says people should consider the TTC as an option to save money.
So I think public transit is very cost effective.
To put the numbers in perspective, the study found that British Columbians spend over $9,000 annually on car ownership costs, while they spend just under $6,000 a year on groceries. Rachel Landry, Humber News.
It's a guilty pleasure for many Canadians that could be hindering our everyday lives. Just over 1,000 Canadians say they are constantly plugged into technology before eating, waking up, and going to sleep. A survey by Angus Reid Vision Critical says the overuse of technology is having a negative impact on our lives. The research says technology affects our behavior socially, mentally, and physically. 38% of 18 to 34-year-olds have admitted to losing track of time while on the internet. 64% of that group say they experience anxiety and stress when they can't connect to Wi-Fi. Humber spa receptionist Monica Grassman says she'd struggle to get through the day without her cell phone.
I feel naked. I feel like I can't contact anyone. Like, it's my source of time too, so I don't have a watch. I use my phone, so it's like losing your sense of time. Like, you don't know where you are in the world.
Over 90% of Canadians surveyed say smartphones make their lives easier. However, over half of those Canadians say they should decrease the amount of time they spend on the web.
Gamers will be pleased to know the upcoming PlayStation 4 console will allow the use of second-hand games. The video game industry relies heavily on consumers trading in old titles and making them available for a fraction of the regular price. The announcement is getting positive feedback from video game stores. Derek Dionarain has more.
Located a block south of Spadina Station, A&C Games, which has been around for 10 years, is a popular go-to spot for gamers. Co-owner of A&C Games, Chang Toy says, like many stores such as his, their success has relied heavily on used games and donations. Toy says Sony made the right decision.
When they announced that they were going to be, able to play the used games, I think everyone was sort of relieved, like the whole industry I'm talking about, because that could have killed console gaming possibly, or really hurt it.
Due to the cost of video games and consoles, Toy says he's noticed a lot of customers who've reverted to trading in their older games in order to afford the newer ones. Electrical engineering student at Humber College, Daniel McGee, says buying used games are a big part of keeping up with gaming, and he'll remain faithful to Sony's merchandise.
I like Sony. I trust their product. I think that they're solid. Everything that they make usually works. So from a consumer standpoint, they're a better choice.
Though some gamers such as McGee respect Sony, Toy says that A&C customers have leaned more towards other classic gaming consoles such as the Nintendo 64 and Super Nintendo.
There's so many more people looking for the things that were from when they grew up with as kids. And that's where they come here for, look for the older stuff, and we carry everything from like 1970, and up, like Atari, ColecoVision, Nintendo, yeah.
With the release of Sony's PlayStation 4 later this year, Toy says he expects to see a rise in used PlayStation 3 games as a result of the continuing trends in retro gaming. He also says he doesn't expect business at A&C to take a hit.
The industry is buzzing with all the talk of next-generation consoles, and A&C Games says they're prepared for whatever Sony PlayStation 4 has in store. Derek Deonarain, Humber News.
We'll have more from this edition of Humber Highlights after this short break.